Hey folks, we're back. I'm your host BKP. We're at Circuit World here in Blue Ridge. It's now time for Ask the Doc with Dr. William Whaley. I want to thank Georgia Cancer Research Center, affiliated with Northside Hospital, for this segment. Dr. Whaley, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. We don't need a truck to put the light sun coming in on us today.
We don't have a sunshine problem this morning.
No, so. It's not. We should be here instead of at Sycamore Crossing today, I think.
Well, I rushed home yesterday afternoon, and I beat the rain on the lawnmower, so the grass is cut. I feel comfortable.
You cut the grass when the pollen count was 2,500 yesterday?
Yes.
Second highest pollen count since they've been counting the pollen, which began in 1976. And you cut the grass.
I have a personal battle with my lawn. It either gets in front of me or I get in front of it, and I can't let my lawn defeat me, and it will.
Did you wear a mask?
No, I did not.
Did you take a Claritin or anything?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
yes, I did.
All right, good.
But I'm on the way home, and I said, I'm going to cut the grass, and somebody said to me, you better wear a mask. So I heard that, and I did.
You know, I got a patient that said he had to get out of there yesterday because he was going to play 9 holes of golf before the rain. So he played 9 holes of golf while you were cutting the grass. Now, which one was doing a better job, huh?
No, I enjoy cutting the grass. It's a strange kind of
Okay, all right. Well, he enjoyed playing 9 holes of golf. Whatever floats your boat.
Well,
BKP.
I just don't understand why he got out of there to play 9. You got to go play 18.
No,
but if you get 9 in, you get 9 in.
Not if it'll rain. All right, go ahead. All right. So anyway, that's the pollen count in Blue Ridge, and it's raining today.
Yes, yes, the pollen count. That's the yellow on the hood of your car, and as soon as you go through the car wash, an hour later, it's yellow again.
Yeah, and your driveway's green. Go ahead.
Exactly.
All right.
I underwent a modified radical neck dissection after being diagnosed with neck cancer. I lost feeling on the left side of my neck, head, tongue, and shoulder. I have no sense of taste and have difficulty swallowing. Will the feeling and sense of taste return?
I don't know. Hey, like that one. Well, okay. You want to go to the next one? No. I'm kidding. Put up that introduction slide, will you? What I've asked for you is, I don't want to know your age and menopausal status and all the family history and all that. That first introduction slide, BKP, you got to look at this. There are 14 sites in the head and neck where the cancer could start. You got it?
Yes. 14.
We have no idea where they're, right? All we know is it's in this geography here.
Right.
Okay, so that really doesn't help. Second, generally there's no surgical procedure if chemo and radiation therapy control the disease and the patient doesn't tell us whether they received chemo or radiation therapy. Second, radiation therapy is the thing that dries your mouth and destroys your sense of taste. Surgery generally doesn't. It might paralyze part of the tongue, make it difficulty swallowing, but your sense of taste would be pretty good again. All right.
So your numbness or your feeling could be due to the surgery, but the sense of taste is not due to surgery.
Well, generally, yes. Generally, yes, because the tongue still would be mobile.
Right.
The swallowing would be due to the surgery, the difficulty moving the tongue. You would have you see people sometimes in a grocery store wearing a t-shirt and one whole half of their neck seems to be gone, and they've got a big old scar there, and that's from the modified radical neck dissection. You don't have a modified radical neck dissection and ever look like this and wear a normal collar. You've got a big old deformity here. Well, that's part number one. 90% of, we're going to come to risk factors here in a minute, but 90% of cancers of the head and neck are squamous cell, kind of like skin, and frequently they appear first in a lymph node. And the guy says, I have a node in my neck and nothing else going on. They biopsy it as squamous cell cancer. They don't know where it came from, and then they have to look in the oral pharynx, the nose, and everywhere else. They don't see a malignancy, and some of those do end up getting a neck dissection without having to resect anything within the head and neck. So anyway, we have not near enough information You look down here, a lot of these head and neck cancers, that's where you get people talking with the voice box. The ones that come up here, the high prices, that would be sinuses and the oral cavity behind the tongue, the cavity behind the tongue because the oral pharynx, or then the oral cavity itself. So we have no idea where this cancer began. There's 14 sites there, so there's incomplete information. So if you'll show that next one there, just for the sake of looking at it, this is a lot easier to read. So if the people will just look at this one, guys looking out here to the left, there are 3 major parts of the head and neck region where these cancers occur. This middle zone here, called the oral pharynx, which includes the tongue. I saw a new patient yesterday who had cancer of the tongue, who has been being followed, I think, for 9 years with a condition called leukoplakia. What is that?
Yeah, really.
You don't remember?
No.
You don't remember that leukoplakia? Okay, here's leukoplakia is that condition. The dentist generally follows it. A head and neck, a ENT surgeon, a dental ENT surgeon generally biopsies it. But you remember all of those things about dip cancer and chewing cancer and the young kids with the pack, and they ended up with cancer. So back in the day where people were dipping a lot, boys were chewing tobacco because it was popular, that constant irritation of tobacco in the mouth would cause, like these sun-damaged areas on my skin here, these are all pre-malignant. And whenever you go to the dermatologist, he puts that stuff on there and it blisters up and goes away. Well, those aren't malignant. He's trying to get rid of sun-damaged skin. Well, if you can just imagine sun-damaged skin in your mouth, but that wasn't sun, it was tobacco or alcohol or HPV, which I'll show you later, that can go on for a decade with multiple biopsies, and then bang, you suddenly get malignancy. So anyhow, one I saw yesterday was in the tongue. Hopefully the guy's not going to need anything, and this is going to scare you to death. Show that chart. Be just a short look at the chart here. But before you get to the point where you have a neck dissection, and what this person had, it's way down here at the bottom in the algorithm of how you work up, evaluate, and possibly treat head and neck cancer. So I will just say, in this patient, we don't know. If that mouth was radiated, it is going to be dry for life. Those people generally will go around with a squeeze bottle or a bottle of water. The sense of taste will be diminished largely for life, but taste is divided into so many things. The ability to take acid, salt, sweet, and some of that will return over a period of a couple of years. If there was no radiation and no chemotherapy and it was totally surgical and a nerve to the tongue was cut, then that sense of taste and the unaffected portions of the tongue and mouth will probably return, if that helps. Okay, now let's get to the risk factors here. No, let's get to the head and neck cancer one here. We've gone over this once before. But in the days that when I began my training, which was 1962, it's a long time ago. You weren't even born yet, were you, BKP?
Move along.
Our head and neck cancer was largely World War II veterans who had been given free cigarettes when they were 17 years old in boot camp, and all through the World War II, every K-ration package had 3 free cigarettes in it, and they tended to drink alcohol. They were more than most people do now, and so 80 or 90% of head and neck cancers prior to the 1990s or year 2000 were related to tobacco and alcohol. I think I told you a few months ago that when we're talking about immunizations, that about 90% of cancers of the head and neck now are related to
HPV.
HPV, well, I'll be darned. So we've talked about HPV as being a cause of cervical cancer. We've talked about HPV vaccinations, which are now given to most of our adolescents in their teens. And 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about immunizations, I said that the FDA has now approved HPV vaccinations for people that are under the age of 50. So they raised the dose, raised the age up because of the epidemic of head and neck cancer. Cervical cancer, not so much now, it's head and neck cancer. 650,000 new cases of head and neck cancer, most related to HPV, much more common in men than women, 4 men to every woman, and it is an epidemic. I see a ton of it. So the last one we got, this big old one about the role of HPV. It used to be that you thought of this disease in the old people. The people I'm seeing now with it, I guess the guy I saw yesterday, I think, is in his mid-60s, but I'm seeing people now down into their mid-30s, 40s, who are having head and neck cancer. So the age group is beginning to go down, and those people are generally HPV positive tumors. Now, they respond quite well to chemotherapy and radiation, which is the preferred treatment, and generally this neck dissection you just read there is left for people who still have disease that did not get eradicated by the surgery and radiation therapy. So just go back to answer the question. Assuming no radiation, the taste should come back. The difficulty with swallowing, you should go have a speech consultation, because they will watch you swallow under a fluoroscope things at different consistencies, and then your diet may be switched to lots more pancakes with gravy, and pancakes with syrup and grits with gravy, and you would have ground meat and blended foods. Some people end up really with soft foods, and many head and neck cancer patients end up with a feeding tube because the surgery and everything, they never do get to where they can swallow right. So you should be in the hands of a survivorship program in a cancer center. We have the best survivorship program at Northside you've ever seen, and that gets speech therapy and swallowing therapy and everything else. So if you're not being seen by somebody like that, call us up and we'll take care of it. How's that?
That's good.
Is that more you wanted to know? All right.
Again, we want to thank Georgia Cancer Research Center, affiliated with Northside Hospital, for this segment. And our second question this morning: I am starting to go through menopause. I am not sleeping well. Recently, I'm not sleeping well. Does menopause affect sleep, and could that be the cause?
Well, the answer first is yes, and second is yes. But that question was really well written, and that is that I am not sleeping well
recently.
Okay, so we are assuming that up until recently this patient slept well, and that's a safe assumption, right? Show that first long, the 20 most common symptoms of menopause. Number 10 is trouble sleeping.
Yes.
So that's kind of way down the list. I mean, hot flashes, cold flashes, night sweats, all those are way above trouble sleeping. But go to the second one. When you go to the second one, this is two parts here. One is the scientific part, and the second one is the symptom part. So what is it that causes you to have trouble sleeping in menopause? And that is that, I'm not going to make you try and read them, but you see those 2 arrows? One of them says progesterone. Well, that sounds like a hormone, doesn't it?
Progesterone.
Yeah, all right. And this one says estrogen.
Estrogen, yes.
All right, progesterone causes sleep problems. Estrogen causes sleep problems related to the symptoms of estrogen lack: hot flashes, night sweats, mood disorders, bloating, cramps, nausea, headache, itchy skin, muscle tension, joint pains, and incontinence. That means urinary. That's 12 things that estrogen deficiency causes that causes you to have poor sleep. So you go back now to this 20 list, And 12 of the things on that list, the symptom interferes with the sleep. The second one is the progesterone, which is a normal female hormone, all by itself can cause you to have a sleep problem. So, how does it sound like you probably ought to be treated? Does it sound like you might want to take a hormone?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you want to...
you want to put back what went away, right?
Yeah, you want to supplement what you're missing.
I'll be darned. Yeah. All right. So, frequently I have mentioned here that I believe people should have a primary care doctor. And I believe that the primary care doctor should assist you in weighing the hazard-benefit ratio of treating the blood pressure, for example, which might dry your mouth or whatever, but the side effects of the medication are far outweighed by the benefit of control of blood pressure. So now we got somebody who can't sleep, who may be having hot flashes, may be depressed and bloated and so forth. And so your primary care doctor will help you measure that hazard-benefit ratio of hormone replacement therapy. Now, there was a fear, Jane would love to say the deep state, okay? Right. But there was a fear thing forever that if you took hormones after menopause, it would increase your incidence of breast cancer and uterine cancer and thrombophlebitis and cancer of the toes and cancer of the nose. And at the end of the day, after millions and millions of studies, absent some genetic familial tendencies, which your family doctor would be able to help you with, or your gynecologist, the benefit of hormones far outweighs the hazard. I saw another patient yesterday who was referred by an orthopedist who is a woman who was 5'6" when she married. She's 5'1" now. She's had compression fractures of her spine and a fracture of the hip due to menopausal osteoporosis, to be put on osteoporosis treatment. And all of that could have been prevented back 30 years ago if she'd started taking hormones, taking vitamin D, and what else, Josh? Going to the gym, walking and exercising. So, back to this question. Yes, menopause can cause sleep disturbance. 2, you ought not get to that point because you discussed your menopausal symptoms with your doctor, and hopefully you probably went on hormones. So now we're going to go to the last one here, and we talk all the time about sleep hygiene. And this one is a tip on, assuming that you're already on hormones or that you said you're not going to take hormones, what can I do to improve my sleep? And basically, at the end of the day, these sleep hygiene things that are on that list are not secret. I mean, you don't eat fatty foods and you shut the lights off. I've always said you don't eat in the toilet and you don't sleep in the kitchen, and so that the bedroom should be reserved for sleep and sexual activity, and that you don't watch television, you don't read books, and you don't write letters in the bedroom, so that psychologically, when you go in the bedroom, your psychology says, I'm going in there to sleep. So that's the first piece of sleep hygiene, that you go to a place that's all you do. Second, you don't have any distractions. Third, you don't, all this stuff about you don't have fatty foods or things in here that are going to make you bloat. But you can go to sleep hygiene. In fact, you can go to the Harvard newsletter and look up sleep hygiene if you're deciding not to take hormones and improve your sleep. So that's more than you wanted to know about menopause and more than you wanted to know about sleep. All right, go ahead.
Okay, again, thank you, Georgia Cancer Research Center, affiliated with Northside Hospital. Dr. Whaley, at this time, we always like to take an opportunity to talk about what is out there in the medical world. What is breaking news, or what are things we need to, and we already heard earlier, and I know you're going to recap the pollen count. So what's going on out there?
Okay, I'm going to forget the pollen count. Put up that medical news thing. All right, so I got this is going. You can actually see this one this week, I think. Can you see that one pretty good? So the first thing on the staff is looking at out there is a piece is the liver. It was about 3 weeks ago that I began to mention that there's a hepatitis A epidemic, and you'll remember that it was in the 2 county jails here. It started in the county jail where you live, down south of the border. And there was some fear that it would be here, and they were isolating people and discussing immunizing them and everything. Yesterday I had a patient in my office whose husband recently died. She's 65 years old. She is getting ready to move into a senior facility down in Johns Creek somewhere, and she's as healthy as you or I, and she's a pickleball player and she's a tennis player, a very active woman. But when she moves in, the history was the form she had to fill out, and she had to be approved by a doctor, was has she been immunized against hepatitis A? The answer was no, and to move in there, they're requiring her to have a hepatitis A immunization. Why? Because the retirement community 2 miles away is part of this hepatitis A epidemic. And this hepatitis A epidemic is huge. It is not just in Georgia. I think it's in about 5 states. But it has become big enough so that the number one, if you look at this, the number one news item on the national news WebMD yesterday was the Georgia epidemic of hepatitis A. So I'm telling you that you heard it here first several weeks ago, and you'll hear it in the paper today. All right, so we're going to jump down here to the next one, and that is, and the hepatitis A epidemic is more common around Rome and in North Fulton County. I think Johns Creek is in Gwinnett County, but anyway, in that area, it's not just in poor neighborhoods. It's not just in the homeless. It's in real people. Now, this E. coli epidemic, there have been 17 cases of the E. coli in Georgia in the past week. You remember the E. coli epidemic? All right, so that has hit Georgia. Now and then you drop down here to the bottom, and we got the measles. There are 5 states involved in the E. coli epidemic now, and Georgia's one. So there's 5. I think there's 5, 6, 7 states for the hepatitis and the E. coli. Well, Georgia's got both of them. I don't know if anybody else has got both. But now in the measles epidemic, you and I were talking offline before we got here about the suburb of New York that has required that everybody who is not immunized become immunized, or they are not allowed to leave their home and go into public places except public parks. So they can't go into stores, they can't go to school, they're not supposed to go anywhere that's public. They have filed a suit against the municipality because this happens to be a particularly tight-knit religious community, although there are people out in West got nothing to do with religion that have the same issue, and they want to be able to go to their church. But this deal about the measles epidemic, and my wife thinks I'm crazy, and I gave you guys last week all the stuff there was to know about the immunizations, is real. It comes up to the deep state. Can you require that if people are going to go to a public school where the taxpayers support it, that they be immunized against measles and hepatitis A and whatever else it is, or not be allowed to attend the local school because of the danger they have to other people? And I'm not going to try and answer the question, but I will at least raise it here today that the 3 things we've talked about here in the last several months, and that was hepatitis A, the E. coli epidemic, and the measles epidemic, are in the top 5 news stories nationally this week. You heard it first on Fetch Your News.
Right here. Got it. Hey, we want to thank always Georgia Cancer Research Center affiliated with Northside Hospital for this segment. And if you would like to go back and watch it or share it with your friends, you can find it on our YouTube channel. That's FYN TV Fetch Your News YouTube channel. Just click on the playlist and find Ask the Doc, and you can send this to your friends, and all of them every week, every episode is on there. Also, if you have a question for Dr. Whaley, send that to us at info, I-N-F-O, at fetchyournews.com, and just put in the subject line Ask the Doc, and we'll get Dr. Whaley a question. I hear our all-star panel assembled.
Yeah, but I wanted to say one thing now.
Okay.
I usually wear a tie to talk about today.
Yes.
I'm not doing that today.
Okay.
I want to talk about the very new, up-to-date millennial shirt that he's wearing here.
Oh, gosh.
He's wearing a millennial, right? I mean, is this not a up-to-date thing here? He's got the blue blazer I went to Chapel Hill or Duke on. He's got the khakis I went to Chapel Hill or Duke on. And he's got the millennial purple shirt. So if you just saw him in an airport, you'd say, oh, he's a graduate of the University of North Carolina.
Oh, my
Or he's
gosh.
a graduate of Duke University because of his sartorial splendor. And
Thanks.
that's new. His sartorial splendor. You got that, crowd?
I just never thought sartorial
Sartorial.
Sartorial splendor.
Whatever apply to you.
I need my cup of water. Yes, exactly.
All right.
100%. We'll be right back with the All-Star Political Panel.